Hey everybody, welcome to Humble and Hungry, where we highlight Camelback Fellows, past and present. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Yulkendy Valdez to the stage. Yulkendy, thank you for making the time to share part of your story with us today. I will briefly introduce you, but I'm going to invite you to do the same. Yulkendy, you're an Afro-Latina from the Dominican Republic. You're a Midwesterner from Missouri and now a New Yorker. You've also been a tech founder and a funder, and all these identities and experiences have given you such a unique perspective. So I'm really excited for this conversation. That's my brief introduction about you. I invite you also to share a little more about yourself and why you chose to pursue being your own boss.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. Entrepreneurship has been my form of activism, and the way that I seek to contribute my small part to the world, I think is the best job in the world, especially when you're building in community with your team. You don't got to go too far to see the news, what's going on in our world, to see that solutions are needed from our communities, from communities like mine, low income, immigrant, Latino communities. Right now, I'm calling in from Brooklyn, Bushwick to be exact. And every time my parents come to visit me, they're like, wow, la cosa se ven diferente. Things are different. And, I got to also own that now like live in a very gentrified community that afforded me privileges that, my parents didn't have. But I think as I reflect and why I'm excited about the conversation today is what hasn't changed is mental health services, the resources. Just like my parents back in the day had struggles because of how they grew up to seek help, is the same struggles I see now with me, with my friends, as we help each other navigate kind of the modern stressors of society. And so I am very, very lucky to just be part of the Camelback network where we can make these conversations around mental health less taboo. So thank you again for having me.
I mean, you and I have talked about this a few times before. So, I mean, we're going to get into it. Before we dive in, though, I'm curious, just so the folks who are tuning in know, Yulkendy was part of the Camelback Fellowship a few years ago. And I'm curious, how did the fellowship or how has the fellowship supported your growth as a leader?
Yeah, no, Camelback, talk about homes, is one of my protectors, my safeguard, because I know it's always a space where I can show up and be 100% authentically myself. And they have been with me to seeing the stream of emotions, right? Through the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, right? Even when I'm succeeding, when I'm thriving, and when I'm not, when I'm getting ready to sunset my business. Camelback is one of my first funders that I went to for that level of care, and grace. And even as I close my company, I still have all of you as a resource. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, like once you're part of the Camelback fam, you're in it for life. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Before we get into mental health, I'm curious, like as a founder who's a person of color, why do you think that entrepreneurship is such a powerful tool for BIPOC communities?
That's right. I mean, in my first venture, I tackle workplace diversity at the top, and the reality is that still to this day, under 3% of senior leadership is Black and Latino. Right? You can count in your hands the number of CEOs, board members that come from our communities. And yes, we have seen some growth, but lately we're also seeing some reverse effects, as we see the impacts of affirmative action, even rippling into the startup community, the venture community. And so entrepreneurship has been the way for us to say, hey, if you're not going to give us a seat at the table, a mic, I'm going to take my talents back to my community where is very well received. And I'm going to build something. And a lot of our community is so intelligent. I mean, Camelback knows this. Like, we talk about our genius all the time. So we've seen the statistics that a lot of folks, such as myself, have dropped out of corporate America and have decided to build all types of businesses, small businesses, venture-backed businesses, nonprofits. And so I'm really, really excited for these next generation of entrepreneurs who are saying, hey, I'm not going to wait any longer. My community needs me, and the day is now.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So given that July is Minority Health Awareness Month, you've already brought up this topic. We're going to delve into the topic of mental health, specifically how entrepreneurs of color often navigate mental illness as they build their ventures. Now, it's not a topic that's often talked about in entrepreneurial circles, but it's one that we both feel strongly about because, as you know, the journey of entrepreneurship is both exciting but also terrifying. There's some really high highs and there's some really low lows. And I'd be curious if you would be comfortable sharing your story. Like, what were some of your biggest mental health challenges as you navigated being a founder, and how did you overcome those challenges?
That's right. It's two-sided. I did say, it is one of the best jobs in the world, right? To create the world that you want to see. But it comes with a burden of responsibility, a burden that easily founders of color take on, right? Because we've seen the repercussions if no action is taken in our communities. We've seen that it can lead to, no health care, a lack of insured folks in our family, a lack of equitable education, lack of affordable housing, lack of education opportunity. So we have taken on this extra role that sadly we did not create our problems, yet we're taking them on, and that's a lot. And then you build on the fact that we grow up being told, work 10 times as harder, that you got to get it right. You got to also be nice. You can't scare anyone off. So imagine dealing with all these messages while also trying to do the right thing and build. And that's a lot. And I think for me, I started to recognize that when I started therapy, too late because of the taboo around it. Every time I would call my mom, and I love my mom. She's great. She gives me the best business advice. If she's listening to this, she's one of my greatest mentors. But when it comes to therapy, she's like, "Tú estás loca." Okay, like that's Dominican for like, that's only for if you're crazy or something.
I feel you. Like, I get the same from my mom.
And obviously she's understanding. We've been having more conversations around mental health, but I finally did that. I found an amazing Dominican therapist who understands my background and began to recognize that definitely when I was building my first company, I was 150,000% in it. I had to get it right. It became my life. And it's because of all the responsibility I was taking as a daughter of teenage parents. My mom had me really young. I grew up with my grandparents. I was raised by my aunt. There's this village that I felt like I need to show them my gratitude for all the efforts that they put in me. And so in many ways, I was trying to feed that inner child, and a lot of us do that. But you can't really sustain that. So actually, I didn't see the results of this until after I closed my business, which was interesting. So I thought it was cool. So I closed my business. Yeah, failure is great. I did some great things and I want to start another one. So I thought I was on top of the world. I did the right thing. I transitioned, and come to the fall of 2022, my body was in shambles out of nowhere. I started traveling again, going back to conferences, with a pandemic. Finally, things, were becoming, at least there were more protocols around the pandemic that made it safe to go to events. But after I started going, anxiety and panic in my body, my nerves were all over the place. My heart was going 100 miles a minute, even when I was just sitting in my couch. And it's the most scared I ever been in my life. And I never knew my mind could affect my body in that way. So it's a new awareness that I never had before about the power of our mental health. And I really had to slow down. I even went back home. And there were many days where I was just in tears because finally I just didn't have all the answers. I wasn't in control, and I was taught to be in control. And this thing finally stopped me in my tracks. And I just remember spending a lot of time around here in Brooklyn going to a specialist because I was like, it can't be my mental health. It's actually there's something wrong with me because it was that bad. And I realized that, no Western medicine was gonna give me answer for what I was experiencing. And so I started going into my community more. And that's how when I got better. But that was a real awakening of the power of how our minds can really affect our physical health. So I started to think more holistically from that point on.
I mean, thank you so much for sharing. Your experience, I think, is, I think a lot more people who once we get to a place where folks are like comfortable sharing would have very similar experiences. I had also like I had anxiety before I started building my venture, but it just skyrocketed once I started building it. And it wasn't just like trying to figure out like, well, what do I do next? Because you're like at the beginning, you're by yourself, you're just like figuring out by yourself. But I'd also left a good job. And like, this is things they don't talk to you about. Like the fact, like a lot of like Black and brown entrepreneurs, like we are contributors, like financial contributors to our family. And I had willingly left a good job to make no money, to build something that I thought should exist. And that, I didn't realize how much that would contribute to my anxiety. Mind you, this is also like COVID was also happening. So I was like worried about the family, their health, but also their financial status. And I was less worried about my own, like, but it was, I couldn't sleep. I was catastrophizing things. It was a terrible thing. And I couldn't understand why it was happening, because no one was talking about, like I was part of different entrepreneurial groups and no one was talking about that they were going through similar things. And so I thought that I was the only one and that I was somehow weak for struggling through this. But I do, like, the more I talk about with other entrepreneurs, the more these stories, like, no, like a lot of us, in fact, most of us, not all of us are going through this. So I appreciate you sharing that story with us. I mean, it's why, as part of the Camelback Fellowship, we talk about wellness. We talk about the importance of taking care of yourself because, again, entrepreneurship is a long game. I don't think our stories are unique. I think all founders are navigating mental health challenges. And I'm just grateful that you got people like you who are brave enough to like say like, yo, this is a problem. You don't have to suffer alone. And there are different ways for you to find help, like whether it be through one-on-one therapy or community wellness groups, like healing circles. That was really like, my soul really started to heal once I got into like communal healing circles, because even though I wasn't talking about what was affecting me, the love that I was around just really just uplifted me. And so I think there are different ways to address these, but like what thing you should not do is hide it.
Yeah, we're definitely not alone. I also found myself meeting people along the way. It's like the same thing happened to me. And I think that's actually also what I meant. That's when I started getting better. The isolation can definitely, just intensify the pain. But once you know, like, okay, it's actually a part of the system that we're all undertaking. And it takes us challenging the system together, changing the way we work, changing the way we build so we can heal together. So this year, actually, it was being planned for a while, but I think if I didn't have that experience, I would have gone through the plan. I actually took a sabbatical for 4 months. Wish it was longer. It flew by. And yes, it was hard. I ended up taking small projects here and there because I think there's always that fear as kind of a provider in the family. You need to keep making money. Don't stop. You got to fight the wheel. But I was so proud, even though I was scared, that I went through it. And I am, telling everybody about it. And, sometimes it's not possible to do these type of sabbaticals, but for everyone, depending on your own circumstance. But to the extent that we can all give each other that ability to even just plan days where we block out our days just for me time, for something that you love to do, and not feel guilty about it. Like help each other not feel guilty about doing nothing days. But I had a blast traveling the world, being a beach bum and doing nothing. But meeting amazing people. And, I actually learn a lot and become a better leader when I meet from folks from all over the world, because it really reminds you there's so many ways to live life. There's so many ways to lead. We tend to reward one specific type of expertise, and no wonder we still experience so many issues and gaps and inequalities in this world. But when I go abroad and really learn about the different ways to do things, I become a better person, and I'm able to bring that back. And so that's something that I did actively just this year. And I'm telling people I'm going to do it every 2 years.
I love that.
So I'm excited to keep it up and follow up. But obviously it's harder said than done, because we still live in a society that rewards productivity over rest.
Can we dive into that a little bit? Because I think you brought up something really interesting. Like there are different ways to lead, but there's also different ways to build companies, right? So whether you're building a nonprofit venture or a for-profit venture, there are a few founders that I've spoken to who will be like, yeah, I definitely want to exploit the people who work for me. Like that's exactly how I want to do it. But essentially, if you are exploiting yourself, and I get it, the grind culture, you got to work hard when you're a founder, especially at the very beginning. But that way of working doesn't go away, right? So if you are working 16 hours a day and then you hire people and then they look at you and they expect, even if you don't say it, even if you tell them no, I expect you to work 8 hours, they're looking at you, and the culture of how you grind will seep into the organization. So we keep perpetuating these modes of exploitation that even if we don't want to, I feel like it's imperative for us to take stock of how we are showing up in the spaces we're building, how we want to show up in the spaces we're building. Because I'll tell you, since we only support impact founders, we want to not only support our communities, but we want to build ventures that allow people who work with us, our teammates, to also thrive. And so I'm curious, given as someone who has also supported founders, what advice would you share with founders who might be navigating mental health challenges as they're building their ventures?
Yeah, that extra weekend away in your laptop is not going to be the make it or break it for your business.
It's not.
That extra, 2 to 3 hours of sleep night, those night shifts. And I'm a big fan of the night shifts. Sometimes, that's when we send our emails. I'm a nocturnal. You can get a lot of work done. But that back to back every day of the week, we all seen it again. It's not going to lead to the success that you want. And I know it's so hard to get away from that, because a lot of it is writing on this, right? Because the message that we're hearing from the media, our counterparts, just every space that we go to, that we're not the norm. We're not the default founder. We're not the ones to get it right. We're the ones to get in the pat in the back. Well, that's an interesting project. Good job. We're the ones to get invited to pitch competitions, to show off, but not the ones getting a $1 million check.
Right.
We're the ones giving awards, but not that major customer intro that's going to lead to a 5-year contract. So I get it. But I think what I learned and what we've seen from successful companies, it's the focus, the discipline, the prioritization is what's going to get you there. Not amount of hours of being overworked. It's what's going to get us there. But if we feed ourselves, if we're feeling good, if we're feeling confident, because confidence is what's selling in this current world.
That's right.
And a lot of it come from Euro standards, how you show up. So if you're feeling good, if you're feeling confident, that's actually what's going to boost your business KPIs and success. So I'm actually getting ready to start my second venture. And so I wouldn't never say what, I'm not going to preach what I'm not putting into action. So even as I get ready to do the second venture, I'm not going to go back into hustle mode and suddenly forget that I learned. Sorry. And so I'm really excited to move my company forward, working smarter, not harder, and even working less. I'm almost like calling myself out. What's wrong if I also say that working less? That's totally fine, because at the end of the day, what matters is how what you do when you show up, and how you work together as a team. And so I have a new group of team co-founders, and we spend time doing wellness exercises at the beginning of the day, when the middle, and at the end. We take intentional time to do that. And we come with more ideas after those breaks than if we continue back to back.
Yeah. And you are a tech founder. And I'm curious, what role do you envision technology playing in alleviating some of these mental health burdens we've talked about? Yeah. What are your opinions about that?
Yeah, I think that tech is always a good supplement. It helps us move faster, be more efficient. In the medical field, is helping providers that are overwhelmed with patient intake, manage that data, understand a patient's profile and a way. Sometimes we know with our healthcare system, it's not as human as it should be, or it's not as personalized. And it's often because these providers work really hard and are inundated. So you have, with the influx of AI, now a lot of tools that are at their disposal to better take care of their patients. So again, it's a good supplement, is a good way to become more efficient and smarter. We've seen it a lot also with providing and accessible therapy, affordable therapy. For example, one of the companies I work with through now at the Google for Startups network, I'm currently supporting their Black and Latino founder cohorts, which is great. They're all working in AI. One of them, Sanurai, connects folks to Spanish therapists. So a lot of folks like my mom, who only speak Spanish, sometimes it's hard for them to talk to a therapist that they don't resonate with. So now with Sanurai, you can do that in their platform, which is awesome. And you have folks like Botco, who's also one of our alumni at Google for Startups, that's providing Gen AI tools, bots, and a lot of their clients are behavioral health offices that really need this. Because again, there is a mental health professional shortage in this country. I'm currently standing in a mental health desert. You wouldn't think that would be in New York, the reality, but it is. We literally don't have enough therapists. We don't have enough professionals to take care of folks that are navigating mental health challenges. So technology can help us streamline a bit more while we hopefully build that workforce out.
Love that. I'm cognizant of time, so I want to first thank you for making the time to talk with us today, sharing a bit about your story, also these fantastic organizations. And before we close, I'd be keen to ask what's next for you, and if you want, how can folks connect with you to learn more?
Awesome. Yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name. That's the one platform I'm really active and love having conversations. I am building my next venture in mental health. So if you're in that space, always come talk to me. The customer discovery, the fun testing phase. I think that's the honeymoon stage of the startup journey when anything is possible. So down to connect. I'm also actually launching a talent agency as well as one of my business projects. And I'm excited because as part of my work with the last business, I was in the training space where I was connecting with a lot of public speakers, but also wellness practitioners. A lot of these corporations, nonprofits, foundations are always looking for talent that they don't have access to. And so with this new agency, I want to get people paid and connected to gigs and more opportunities. So if you're looking for more support in that area, also reach out. That's one of the projects that I'm excited to be working on this summer. And 3, I'm going to be writing a book, actually. So I just want to put it out there that would cover how do we dismantle conversations such as the one around mental health journey, and just, again, what it looks like to build and create and lead in a world where you're not the default. So that's another creative project that I'm excited about and look forward to connecting with other folks that have undertaken that journey. But thank you, Selam, for having me here. This was a great conversation.
Yulkendy, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for making the time.